Most people assume late-night TV legends only drive seven-figure supercars and collector-grade classics. But what if I told you some of their most beloved rides are among the cheapest you can buy? Today, we're counting down the cheapest cars owned by David Letterman, Jay Leno, and Jerry Seinfeld, and why they love them so much. It starts with David Letterman. You might know him for that massive car collection co-owned with Paul Newman, filled with Ferraris, vintage race cars, and Porsches that can buy you a mansion. But even a guy like Dave has a soft spot for the humble and utilitarian. Like his 1995 Volvo 960 wagon. Yep, a station wagon. This Swedish box on wheels might not turn heads, but that's exactly why Letterman loved it. With its big windows, long roofline, and brick-like silhouette, it had the kind of quiet confidence only a Volvo could pull off. While other car guys were chasing down horsepower, Dave was cruising around in something you'd expect to see in a high school parking lot during the Clinton era. Originally priced around $35,000, the 960 was considered Volvo's luxury model at the time. It came with leather seats, wood trim, power everything, and enough space in the back to nap during lunch breaks. Today, a clean one sells for under $6,000, less if you don't mind a few coffee stains and a tape deck that only plays one side. Letterman reportedly kept his Volvo long after he left late-night TV. According to a producer, the car was his go-to when he wanted to fly under the radar in New York. No limo, no flashy SUV, just a dad wagon that blended in perfectly. He even had the rear windows tinted and added a roof rack so he could load up fishing gear or bikes without drawing any attention. No engine mods, no custom wheels, just stock and solid. The car says, "I've got nothing to prove," and for a guy who made a career out of being low-key funny, that fits like a glove. Letterman also owns a first-generation Mazda Miata. Yes, that Miata. The NA model that debuted in 1989 and quickly became one of the most beloved cars on the planet. Lightweight, easy to maintain, and built with just enough power to make a back road feel like a racetrack. But that's not why Letterman picked one up. He never made a huge fuss about it publicly, but people close to his garage say he liked the Miata for what it wasn't. It wasn't a trophy car. It wasn't flashy, and most importantly, it wasn't something people would expect a late-night host to roll up in. His Miata, finished in classic British racing green, was the kind of car you take out when you don't want to think. Just drive. Letterman's version has a few subtle upgrades. A new soft top replaced the aging factory one. The factory wheels were swapped out for lighter, period-correct NKRPF ones, and the interior? Pretty much stock, minus a custom Nardi wood steering wheel and upgraded seat padding. Simple stuff. Functional, nothing over the top. There's no chrome polish or supercar vanity here. Just a clean, well-loved roadster that fits right in with Letterman's taste for under-the-radar gems. And here's the kicker, these cars still sell for under $10K. Even a super clean one like this wouldn't cross the $15K mark. Fun fact, the NA Miata's pop-up headlights weren't just for looks. They were originally designed with airflow and safety in mind, and they've now become one of the most iconic features in all of car culture. And to complete his trio, one of Letterman's most under-the-radar rides is the late 60s Chevrolet C10 pickup, a true blue-collar machine from the golden days of American trucks. This isn't some polished-up showpiece with chrome wheels and a crate engine. It's the kind of truck that looks like it's hauled bales of hay, lumber, and fishing gear, and probably still does. His model? A 1969 short bed fleetside, finished in a two-tone combo, forest green with a cream top, which gives it just enough old-school flavor without looking too precious. The paint isn't showroom perfect, and that's on purpose. Letterman wanted it to keep a little wear, a little rust in the seams, something that looks like it's been used, not baby. He had the bench seat reupholstered in vintage plaid, the kind of pattern you'd expect on a flannel jacket. The dash still has the original gauge cluster, and the steering wheel's got the kind of patina that only comes from years of real driving. But he did make one small upgrade, a modern sound system tucked into the glove box, so he can still crank out old Springsteen tracks while driving through backroads in Montana. The truck keeps steel wheels, manual windows, and even the hand crank fence, stuff most people wouldn't think twice about today, but it's part of what gives the C10 its charm. No power seats, no touchscreens, just a key, a clutch, and a bench. For someone who's spent decades surrounded by TV cameras, fast cars, and private planes, this pickup is Letterman's version of stepping off the grid. And with clean examples ranging from $10K to $25K, it's a reminder that cool doesn't always come in carbon fiber. But speaking of cool, wait until you see what Jay Leno did with the cheapest car on the planet. That one's up next. You'd think a guy with a garage full of Bugattis and McLarens wouldn't bother with something like the Tata Nano, but that's exactly why Jay Leno added one to his collection. The Nano, launched in 2008, was built with a single goal, to be the cheapest new car in the world, and it hit that mark, selling for under $3,000 in India. Leno got his hands on one in 2011, directly imported from India. It was one of the first to reach American soil, and naturally, it ended up featured on his show. Jay didn't buy the Nano to drive fast or turn heads. He bought it because it stood for something. The car came with the bare minimum, a tiny 0.6-liter two-cylinder engine, manual windows, no power steering, and absolutely no airbags. That's what made it unique. It was made for families who'd never owned a car before, people who used scooters to move 4 deep in traffic. Leno's Nano came in bright sunshine yellow, untouched from the factory. No performance upgrades, no aftermarket wheels. The only custom work he did was a bit of light restoration to get it show ready and US compliant. He kept it stock to preserve its message. He even called it the most important car nobody bought, a nod to its short-lived production and huge ambition. In a garage full of multi-million-dollar supercars, the Nano stands out, not for what it is, but for what it tried to be. That's exactly why Jay loves it. And just when you think it couldn't get any more modest, Jay Leno pulls out his 1959 Fiat 500. Not the Abarth, not the turbocharged modern one. We're talking about the original tiny Italian box on wheels. This thing came with 2 cylinders, a tiny manual gearbox, and just enough muscle to survive city traffic, if the city was Rome in 1962. But here's the twist. That's exactly what makes it cool. It's not about speed, it's about personality. The Fiat 500 has charm in spades. And Jay? He's kept his in immaculate condition. Clean paint, original trim, and of course a few of his own touches under the hood, like a tweaked carburetor setup for smoother idling, and a custom-made exhaust that gives it a bit more growl without being obnoxious. The car has also had its electrical system updated. Still 12 volts, but now with a modern alternator tucked behind the classic bits, just to make sure it doesn't die in LA traffic. And the seats? Reupholstered by Leno's in-house team to match the factory pattern but with better padding because, well, comfort matters even when you're not going fast. Back in '59, this car would have cost around $1,000 new. Today, depending on condition, they range from $7,000 to $15,000, and Jay's is probably at the top end. So if this little Italian shoebox just won your heart, or made you want to check your local classifieds, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more automotive surprises. Now, speaking of soul, there's one car that's older than both the owner and his hairstyle. Jay Leno owns a 1925 Ford Model T, a car that basically introduced America to personal transportation. It wasn't made to turn heads, it was made to get people from point A to point B, and it did that better than anyone else in its time. Leno's Model T isn't restored or polished for show. It's in what he calls barn find condition, meaning it still looks like it was just pulled out of a dusty garage after 50 years. The body has faded paint, old dings, and wear that's all original. It hasn't been repainted or patched up. Inside, it's just as basic. A long wooden bench seat, thin steering wheel, and no dashboard as we know it, just the essentials. Instead of a gas pedal, it has floor pedals for gear control and hand levers on the steering column for throttle and spark advance. There's no speedometer, no fuel gauge, no modern controls. It's all based on sound, feel, and experience. As for customizations, Jay kept it mostly original, but to make sure it could still be safely driven, he added new tires, replaced the old fuel lines, and upgraded the brakes slightly for better reliability. No digital gauges, no AC, nothing fancy, just simple safety tweaks. He's taken it out for slow weekend drives and used it in a few local parades. Leno says driving it is more about focus than fun. Starting it requires using a hand crank. One wrong move and you're walking home with a bruised wrist. Still, Jay wouldn't have it any other way. And finally, there's Jerry Seinfeld. Most people know him as the king of Porsches, 911s, 365s, RSRs, GT2s, but in between all those rear-engine screamers, he's got a few tiny surprises. One of the most unexpected gems in Jerry Seinfeld's massive car collection is his 1957 Fiat 500. This tiny Italian city car isn't flashy, loud, or fast, but that's kind of the point. In fact, Seinfeld picked this one for an episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, where it stole the show just by being so small. He joked it was like driving a phone booth on wheels, and honestly, that's not far off. The '57 Fiat 500 was Italy's answer to the need for an affordable compact car post-World War II. It's got just enough space for 2 adults up front and maybe a few groceries behind them. The suicide doors, pop-out windows, and fabric sunroof were all standard back then. Not luxury touches, just smart, simple design choices. It was built to be useful, not flashy. Jerry's model is completely original in appearance. No wild rims or flashy paint, just a fresh coat of factory-spec gray, cleaned up chrome, and restored badging. Inside, the original bench seats have been reupholstered in matching vinyl, and the dash still sports that classic minimalist layout. He's also had the electricals modernized a bit behind the scenes, better lighting and a stronger starter, but you'd never know from looking at it. You can pick one of these up today for around $7,000 to $12,000, depending on the condition. Jerry's? Worth more, mostly because it's so well kept, and well, it's been driven by Jerry himself on camera. Not bad for a car you can almost lift by hand. Then there's the 1974 Volkswagen Karmann Ghia. Jerry Seinfeld's quiet classic. You wouldn't expect to find something like this sitting next to a Porsche Carrera GT or a vintage 356 in his garage, but that's exactly why it stands out. It's not fast, it's not rare, but it's got soul, and that's exactly why Jerry has it. The Karmann Ghia was built on the same platform as the VW Beetle. It shared the same air-cooled engine, suspension, and basic layout, but the body? That was all style. The Italian design house Ghia shaped the curves, and German coach builder Karmann assembled it by hand. The result was a car that looked like it cost way more than it did, even if it drove like a Beetle in a tuxedo. Jerry's Ghia is a 1974 model, the final year before the car was discontinued. It's completely stock, just how he likes it. Still wears the original color, an understated light blue that gives it a calm, vintage vibe. The chrome bumpers, trim, and factory wheels are all still there, untouched. Inside, it's pure nostalgia. The vinyl seats are original, complete with creases and age marks. The dash still rocks the factory radio, though Jerry added a small Bluetooth module behind it, tucked out of sight, just so he could play his playlists without changing the look. No screens, no touch controls, just one tiny speaker behind the glove box. Classic Seinfeld move. This Ghia isn't a trophy piece, it's more like a love letter to simple car design. Today, cars like this go for $12,000 to $15,000, but to Jerry, it's worth a lot more than that. It's a reminder that you don't need a turbo or a badge to enjoy the ride. Did you know the Karmann Ghia's body panels were all welded and shaped by hand, making it one of the few mass-produced cars of its era to get a custom touch, straight from the factory? And finally, we wrap things up with the king of nothing himself, behind the wheel of a car that's about as far from a Porsche 959 as you can get, his 1970 Volkswagen Beetle. This isn't some souped-up Herbie remake or an off-road Baja version. It's the classic stock bug, round headlights, simple dash, and that unmistakable silhouette. Seinfeld picked up this Beetle not for speed or show, but because it reminded him of when car culture was all about simplicity. No power steering, no fancy touchscreen, just a basic, honest car that got the job done, and that's what makes it special. His version is clean, well-preserved, and surprisingly untouched. No flashy paint job or performance mods, just a few subtle tweaks for comfort. He's added a slightly upgraded interior with newer upholstery that still keeps the vintage look, and a custom steering wheel that gives it a bit more of a driver's feel. Other than that, it's as original as it gets. The car lives in his collection next to models worth millions, but Jerry's kept this one as a reminder of where it all started. In the 70s, the Beetle was everywhere, from student parking lots to family driveways. Today, a restored one might go for around $10,000 to $12,000, but in Seinfeld's garage, it holds a kind of value no price tag can touch. Because for him, and maybe for a lot more of us, some cars aren't about horsepower, they're about memories. So there you have it, 9 surprisingly affordable cars owned by some of the biggest names in late-night TV. These aren't just cheap rides, they're personal picks with stories, quirks, and a whole lot of character. From Volvo wagons and vintage Beetles to a $2,000 Tata Nano, these cars show that you don't need millions to have great taste. In fact, sometimes the most meaningful machines are the ones that cost the least. If you didn't expect to hear names like Karmann Ghia or Mazda Miata today, hit that like button, it helps more than you know. And if you're into rare finds, garage surprises, or just love seeing stars drive like regular folks, don't forget to subscribe. We've got more hidden gems coming your way, and you won't want to miss what's next under the hood.